average size male marten, and we're just going to skin it for garment use, not for taxidermy, just for how you'd normally skin for preparation to sell to a fur dealer or to have it tanned and make something with it. The first thing you can see, I got my legs covered up with an apron, and I'm going to put my knees together tight, and this is the position I use to do my initial cuts. I just hold the pad, the paw here, between my thumb and forefinger, and then I poke the knife right about through the center of the pad, just like that, and then I hold the knife upwards a little bit so I could just slide it right underneath the skin and aim it right straight down the leg, right straight towards the vent opening. And I only want to cut about that far. And we just switch her over like this and do the other foot the same way. Let's get the knife in, you can lift it up. It's easier if you can keep the knife in underneath the leather. If it pops out, then you have to start all over again, and it's a little more difficult. So you just get about that far, and that's it. Then you lift them up, open your knees, and pinch his head between your knees, put the body over its back, and then this exposes the front leg real nice to do the front leg the same way. Poke the knife in the middle of the hand, like that. Lift up a little bit, and you have to feel your way through and just make that cut. And I just pulled my knife out about 1 inch from the body. Okay, just flip them over like this. Still got the head between my knees. Poke the knife in, and just feel your way right up the base of the leg until you stop about there, about 1 inch from the body. Okay, now you just have them kind of belly toward you, and you just grasp him just below the shoulders and just roll his lip back like this, and then take your finger and thumb and just sort of pinch his lip like this to give a place for your knife to begin. And you just take the point of your knife and just give it a quick little poke right there to start it. And then you do the lower jaw, you just slice it a little bit. It's pretty hard to cut through the actual leather. It'll cut and separate it from the jaw much easier than to turn the knife over, put it right back in the same hole, and just slide it right up the upper jaw. Okay. I'm going to turn him over here like this and do the other side of his head the same way. Poking the knife in, slicing up the upper jaw this time, putting the knife back in the same spot, and doing the lower jaw. Now we're going to do the lower jaw, and the way I do that is I just sort of pinch it right here, enough to get the knife underneath all the way through to the other side, and then get my finger under here and just sort of saw it a little bit. By twisting the knife, I can raise the lower jaw until I get my finger under there pretty good. And then you don't have to be fussy about the lower jaw. In fact, you can even cut the lower jaw off completely if you wanted to. I generally don't. I don't know why. Just like that. Then I pull on this a little bit and just clean it up here a little bit like that. And then I pull it out again, and you can see right down here the meat along the cheek is still adhered to the leather. And I'll just take the point of my knife and just sort of get it started. You can see right there it's a little bit cleaner. And I'll do the same to this side. Just use the point of the knife. The knife has to be very sharp. Just scrape it a couple of times, and it comes out disattached from the hide. And I turn it around again because I am right-handed, and then I just pull his upper lips back like so, until I can get to the nose cartilage, and just saw right through the nose cartilage, like that, all the way around, right through. Then I can get a hold of the nose and start with this part of my knuckle. I can push against his forehead and just kind of get a good pull on it. And then you have to have a good pull so you can aim your knife towards the skull and just make your cuts, just sort of trim it up like that, and then get a hold of it real good and pull down and hard. And then you can work the eyes. You can see the eye socket here. Try to get both of them down to some point before you try to pull it all the way off. Pull real hard here and just slice, and the eye comes out nice and clean. I'm pulling real hard with my left hand and just slice. Now we're ready to hang it up. Okay, now we hang them up, little S-hook here, and we just poke it in right underneath the lower jaw, and that's a real good place to hang it. And then just pull by the lower jaw and the nose, and just pull down with it, both hands at the same time. And this little bit of meat we can trim off later on, but you can see how nicely it exposes the ear. You just pinch it between your thumb and forefinger and just cut it off close to the skull. Spin her around, do the same to the other side. Okay, and then take your index finger and put it underneath by the ear and pull down, like hook it and pull down, and that gives you a nice clean place to cut a little bit. Just touch it with the knife. Same thing here. Just touch it with the knife while you're pulling. And you can do the same with the lower jaw. Use 2 fingers for the lower jaw. You can see where that shows exactly where to cut, and just touch it. Be careful you don't cut through the leather. And once you get that, then you put your knife down, and then you just use your thumbs underneath here and your fingers to just push down. Just push straight down all the way around until you can feel the adhesions breaking loose, and you want to stuff your fingers right down till you feel the upper shoulder joints. You want to get it good and loose. Okay, once you get to there, then you just take and just sort of hook it with your fingertips and just pull it right down till you're exposing both upper shoulders. And then you can take one finger on each side of the shoulder and just pull down a little bit, and then pull down a little bit here. And then you take your thumb and you take the foot and just stuff it back up underneath the leather, just like that, okay? Now, you can use your thumbs right in here to flesh with. You can see how I'm sort of scooping the meat and pushing it back onto the animal, and then using my lower thumb just to tighten it up once in a while here. And you just take your time to do it good here. Don't be in a hurry to poke your thumb through. What you're trying to do is flesh it so you get all the meat stuck to the carcass instead of on the hide. And once you have your thumb through, then you can come through with your finger the other way and just pull it apart to start skinning the leg until it pops through. Now here, you want to make sure you have the leather behind your index finger even. You don't want it twisted around in a knot. You want to have it nice and even, so you're pulling it evenly. Now this is the foot it was caught by, so I might use my finger in here a little bit to kind of pull on the sides, because it was real easy to tear that off because the leather has been weakened by the trap. And then you hold it real tight here and just pull until you get the hide all the way down to the foot. And if you're going to skin the claw joint, then you can just take your index finger and force it down, or your middle finger, and just force it down. My tip of my fingers all the way to the head of the toes here, and then you can just push it inside out like this. But we're not going to go ahead and skin each toe. We're just going to cut it off there, so you don't really need to do all that. Then just do the other side same way. Just, you're fleshing it with your thumb, pull down with this thumb, fleshing it with your thumb until you get it through, and then pull down. You notice how nice and clean everything is. There's no fat, no meat, anything on, even along the legs. So you don't have to go back and flesh anything in after you're done. That's one of the real assets in skinning from this angle. Okay, and you pick your knife up again and just get your knife along the leather, and you can just pull and saw, and if you leave that much is real fine. That's real acceptable for garment use. Just like that. Put your knife down again and get a paper towel and get your fingers underneath here, and you can see where the meat is still clinging a little bit. If you just take your paper towel and bunch it up, it's got to be a dry paper towel, and just push just like that. You can see it just pushes that flesh right off, pushes it back onto the carcass. Once you start clean, the rest of the skinning will stay clean. Then just grab him by the nose and get a hold of the lower jaw, and you can just pull it down over the rest of his body. Then I take my fingers and I hook against his nose, the upper head, and then I take my other hand and I try to hold this tissue. I try to hold on to it again to keep it skinning clean and to support it, and then I just pull away. This is a very large marten, so it's a little tougher to pull. Sometimes it's good to look around, make sure. Sometimes if there's a scar, you can tear it real easy. So it's good to look it over. And just pull it all the way down till you see the base of the tail, and you can see that your legs are ready to start skinning here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just get a hold of the leather here and use my thumb right against his leg bone and just push away with the leg bone while I'm pulling here. And that gives me a good start. Then I get another grip and use my thumb to get through. Okay, and then the same thing, I come through with my index finger and just pull away until I can get the foot out through the cut that I made partway up the leg, like so. And I sort of hold onto this tight and I turn it around. I try to get my finger supported behind here, so I'm pulling on the leather on both sides simultaneously so I don't tear it. And I just pull straight down like so. And it just skins on both sides at the same time. Then I take my middle finger and push it right down the back of the hand until my tip of my finger is right here behind his claw. Then I use my thumb here and I just push with my thumb and turn the paw inside out on the base of the hand. And I just leave that until I get the other leg done and then do both feet at the same time. Here because I'm right-handed again, I just grab a hold of the leather down here and use my fingers here to pull up on the leg. And I can go in from the back. You could switch it around and do it from the belly side too, either way, but it's just the flow that I use to keep my time up. It just seems easier this way. And just push. Once you get your thumb in the joint, you got a good something to push against. And then I use my thumb again to flesh it. And you can, again, I want to point out how clean everything is. There's no fat. There's no way for any of the fat or meat to get on the fur where the cut is going to be. It comes out real clean at the bottom. And then I'll just go ahead and finish this leg by pulling. And then again, turning it around and making sure here that you're pulling on both. You can feel it with your finger, pulling on the leather on both sides of the leg simultaneously with the same amount of pressure. If you pull it around the leg, you're going to tear it. Okay, and once you got your feet like this, now I'm going to back up a step. And I'll do the two end toes first. And I just get my knife in there, and I feel for the joint, and I just sort of lean back into it and give it one quick pull, and I just severed the joint. And it's easier to do the two end toes first. And then I make a little cut to saw right behind the toes here to expose the other three toes completely. And I use my knife just to pull with until I pull the last toe joint out. And then I get right at the claw joint. I sever between the toe joint and the claw joint. And there. This is actually plenty good enough for if you're going to want to mount the Marten for taxidermy, you'd want to do it this way too. Okay, now we just take them off the hook and we sit down here to finish them up. Put the carcass down like this, and then we're going to just cut the... Okay, now that the penis is loose, we have to finish skinning around the base of the tail, and the best way to do that is just hold tight with your knees on the carcass and pull here on the leather, and just right here you could just touch it with the knife and pull. Again, touch it with the knife and you can see these glands. It's good not to cut through the glands because it really has a bad odor. And just pull and cut a little bit and pull and cut a little bit, just like that, and then pull it up about to here and then stop. And then you want to finish your cut down the base of the leg here, and the best way to do that is just put your thumb right in the cut so you can find the end of the cut here where you stopped, and if you pull it tight, it gives you a real good guide to make a nice straight cut. And you use your knife this way because you don't want to chop the hair off, so you just want to cut on the leather side, and with a sharp knife you could just go right straight on down, whoops, right down to the vent opening, just like that. And I stop short so that way I can do this one and I can tell exactly where I'm aiming at. If I finish the cut all the way, then it distorts my aim a little bit. And you want to get both of these legs cut the exact same way so they're even on the stretcher. Like so. and then cut that loose. And then the only thing we have to do now is get our tail puller, which we just put around the base of the tail tightly. Hold on here. It's good to have your hand covering everything up so you don't get squirted, and just hold it tight and pull, and it pulls the tail right out of the hide, and you're done skinning. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and I guess board this now. If you're not going to board it right away, then it's good to go ahead and put it fur out and freeze it like this. And then when you have a stretcher available, then you can thaw it out and then turn it back around and stretch it. It's best to store it this way so it doesn't freeze or burn or dry out too much while it's frozen. Okay, now we're going to do a mink, the same exact technique that we showed you just now on the Marten. Here we're not going to save the back feet or the front feet again. It's a little smaller mouth on a mink, so it makes it a little more difficult to get his body, the mouth opening pulled over his body. Okay, same deal as with the Marten. Hang him up by the lower jaw. I didn't do as clean a job around the cheeks on this as I did on the Marten here, so I'll just work on that a little bit first. There we go. Now pinch the ear off. Get it to here, and then you have to kind of squeeze the intestines, forcing them up through the mouth opening here. It's just he has too small of a mouth to try to get pulled down as easily as it is to do the Marten. But if you just do this, obviously it has to be pretty well thawed. If he's part frozen, you really struggle with it. There it goes. Okay, now I'm going to try to get some of the fat adhered to the carcass, but it's really difficult on a mink to try to flesh while you're skinning. Yeah, see, it just comes off with, we're just going to have to flesh this off on the beam. You can see the amount of fat on a mink is much, much greater than a Marten. Just pulling the leg upwards. Okay. Okay, now we're ready to sit down with it. Now the one thing I'm going to do different on a mink that I didn't do on a Marten is I'm not going to make these last cuts now. I'm just going to finish skinning, getting the carcass off the hide. I'm not going to finish opening up the legs. What I'm going to be doing is fleshing them first. So the reason I'm doing that is so I don't get all this fat and stuff on the fur. All I'm going to do now is finish skinning them, trying real hard not to cut through the glands. A mink has these musk glands that, there they are right there. If you can avoid cutting into them, it helps a lot of the smell. Same technique, you just touch it with your knife and a lot of pulling. There's the vent opening. There. Use the tail puller, use my paper towel around that musk gland, and we're done skinning.